Hello and welcome to our special Terrace Scottish Football podcast focusing on the laws of the game. I'm Craig Anderson and I'm joined again by Ewan Taylor.
Hello, Craig.
And today we're going to talk about Law 5, which is the referee. So this kind of brings on who the referee is and what they can actually and can't do in a game of football. So it's quite weird to have a set of laws that talk about the person who governs the laws, but I suppose there has to be something to say what they can do. So first of all, each match is controlled by a referee who has full authority to enforce the laws of the game. So that's whose job it is. It's the ref who makes decisions. Decisions will be made and this is actually really important because this comes down to everything that's kind of, in my opinion, going wrong with football at the moment in terms of how laws are interpreted. Decisions will be made to the best of the referee's ability according to the laws of the game and the spirit of the game, and will be based on the opinion of the referee who has discretion to take appropriate action within the framework of the laws of the game. It is an opinion-based sport. It's a set of opinion-based decisions, but I think that's often overlooked. It's like there isn't actually a right decision a lot of the time. It's like, what does that referee think?
Yes. Yeah. And often they're wrong, but that certainly has been lost, certainly.
Yes.
And obviously competence has been called into question recently, specifically, of certain officials. So yeah, it is something that I think people really struggle with, and especially after. I mean, you sort of understand just after a game, but it's when managers, particularly managers, try to make, they're obviously at it because
followed down.
Yeah. I mean, we know we're recording this just after, well, not just after, but the week that Hearts beat Celtic 2-0 at Tynecastle, and the strength of feeling on some decisions which were perfectly understandable was quite wild. But it's and it's certainly you could probably argue to both the red card that Jan got and the penalty that Hearts got. You could certainly argue them the other way, but it's quite clear that you could argue for the correct decisions were made in both instances. For it to be treated, for those decisions to be treated the way that they were treated by, I would say, the media and Celtic as a club was quite bizarre.
Yeah, there's a small proportion of decisions that are actually 100% wrong. There are decisions which are probably wrong, or like most people would think are wrong, but they're an opinion-based decision, and I think a lot of things fall into that. So there's a few things. The decisions of the referee regarding facts connected with play, including whether a goal was scored and the result of the match, are final. So what the ref says goes, basically, on any decision. You can't appeal whether, the ball crossed the line and it didn't, and the ref gives the goal. You can't then go, well, that shouldn't count, let's take one off the score. Once the referee gives the goal, it's a goal. And the decisions of the referee and all other match officials must always be respected, which doesn't always actually happen. The referee can't change a decision if they realise it's wrong, if play has already restarted, or if the referee has stopped the game and left the field of play. So once, I guess the obvious example here is the VAR decision on the Liverpool-Tottenham game from earlier this season, where the referee, the offside was given on the pitch. Spurs lined up to take the indirect free kick for offside. The VAR just communicated it really badly and were like, oh yeah, it's fine, let's go. The referee restarted play with a free kick, which meant that even though they realised kind of a few minutes later, or probably 10, 20 seconds later, that it should have been a goal, because the referee had awarded the free kick and play had restarted based on that referee's decision, they couldn't go back and change it. Had play not restarted yet, so had they said, okay, yes, give the goal, and then the Tottenham goalkeeper or whoever was taking the free kick then had to stop and tie his laces, or someone went down injured, and play hadn't actually restarted again, that could have been reversed. But as soon as play restarts with the permission of the referee, then you're done. You can't change it. There is one exception to some decisions that we'll get onto with VAR decisions, but it's to do with red cards. However, it is true that if at the end of a half the referee leaves the field of play to go to the referee review area or to instruct the players to come back on, that doesn't prevent an incident from being changed. So there have been a couple of decisions. There was one in a game at Old Trafford involving Man United where the referee blew the full-time whistle and the players started to go off, but then he got told about a VAR review and everyone had to get brought back on for a penalty. That is the one case, because I guess play hasn't restarted. Yeah. But if the referee had blown the full-time whistle and went down the tunnel and said that that's the game done, once he's off the park, you can't then go back. But while the referee kind of hangs about on the pitch, which they're instructed to do, if there's a potential ongoing review, they will. And what they tend to actually do now, if there's an ongoing review, is if there's a chance to, they just don't blow the full-time whistle. But obviously without prolonging the game unnecessarily. And we'll get on to the VAR-related parts of it later, but a disciplinary sanction can only be issued after play is restarted if a different match official had identified it and tried to tell the ref, but the ref, they couldn't get through to it. So say the assistant sees someone throw a punch off the ball, the referee stops the game and restarts it for something else, but the assistant just couldn't get in contact with the referee for whatever reason, they can then, after the ball goes out of play the next time, still call them over and say, look, I saw this, and the player will still get sent off. Or if it was a yellow card offence, the same. But apart from those very specific incidents, once play restarts, you're kind of in the clear. And I always think that with players, like when it's a VAR, see if there's a VAR review and it's finished and the referee kind of calls them to play on. If I was the defending team, I would be taking that throw in or free kick as quickly as possible.
I think that quite a lot, even when it's like not, if sometimes it's like the referee maybe hasn't properly communicated that there is a VAR check going on. I always think just get going, because then is it less likely that if it's a referee just going to maybe go, I think it's probably all right. And then, just try and game the system if you can. Whether it possibly should still get called back, but yeah.
Then there's if a referee is incapacitated, so basically if they fall over or something, play can continue under the supervision of the other match officials until the ball's out of play. So if the ref goes down injured or something, the two assistants can basically keep watching until the ball goes out of play and then tell the referee what to give. And then obviously we can deal with what happens after that. So the game doesn't have to stop as soon as the ref goes down or whatever. So what are the powers and duties of the referee? To enforce the laws of the game, to control the match, to act as a timekeeper. I suspect that one will be taken out of the hands of the referee before long, sadly. Or not sadly, but I think the way it will go will not be good. Keeps a record of the match, so notes who he's given yellow cards and red cards to, and provides a match report, including information on disciplinary action, etc. These match reports, like when you're refereeing like amateur and low-level football, there's a lot you have to do, because you have to probably tick exactly what each yellow card's for, and if it's a red card, you have to write a detailed report. From what I understand, there's actually a bit less of that at the higher level. You don't have to do the detailed report because the incidents are typically like filmed and all the rest of it. So you have to say what the red card was for, but you maybe don't have to give all the context. The reason for that report is in case there's like the team want to appeal or there's any disciplinary hearing, so that there's a record of what the referee decided to do at the time. And when I refereed like youth football and stuff, you would occasionally get called to an appeal hearing, and you would basically be like, this is my match report, and they would ask you, and it would be like, do you still stand by that? And you say yes, and then usually, unless there's really strong evidence, then what you've written at the time is what will be called upon. And supervises and indicates the restart of play. And I think it's important to say indicating the restart of play can either be explicit, i.e. like a whistle or a signal, or implicit, like they don't, when someone restarts, they don't stop them from doing so. I think that can be important in other decisions later on. Advantage, so the referee will allow play to continue when an offence occurs, and as long as the team who've been fouled will benefit, but will penalise if there isn't an advantage accrued. And most of the time when people get pissed off with advantage not being played, it's because the referee doesn't realise there's about to be an advantage. So it's happened to me. It'll happen where there's a player being pulled back and it looks like they're being stopped because they're being pulled back, and you're like, I'm just going to stop this. And then, of course, as soon as you blow the whistle, that's when they somehow magically manage to kick the ball and send someone through or something. I think there was one involving Man City earlier in this season where it was something.
It was like Haaland was through.
Ben.
Or Grealish, I think it was actually. It was Haaland that played the pass. It was through a goal, and the referee pulled it back.
Yeah. But referee's decision is final. He gave a free kick. Tough. That's the law side of it. Not saying it was the right thing to do. With disciplinary action, if more than one offence happens at the same time, then the referee has to punish the more serious one. So that could be in terms of sanction, restart, etc. So if there was a punch and a pull at the same time, then the free kick would be given to against the player who punched, not the one who pulled, if you know what I mean. Takes disciplinary action. The authority to take disciplinary action from the moment they enter the field of play for the pre-match inspection until the match finishes and they leave the field of play. So if, for example, a player does something before they start the game, the ref can prevent them from taking part in the match, which we spoke about in Law 3, and will report everything. Can show yellow or red cards, and where competition rules permit, temporarily dismiss a player. So in grassroots football, you can have sin bins as well. And if the referee sends someone off, their authority stands on that. A player can't say, well, I've got the legal right to be on this pitch. The referee will say, well yes, but the game's not continuing until you leave. You can also take action against match officials. I think there's just a lot of wording about the same stuff. But the crucial part, I guess, is if it's a coaching incident and they can't work out who's done something. So say a ball was thrown from the dugout onto the pitch and the referee doesn't know who threw it, then it'll be the most senior coach present in the technical area, so usually the manager who would be booked for doing that, for example. Or if someone shouted something abusive and couldn't be identified, they would be the manager who would be sent off because they're kind of responsible for their coaching staff. But if there's the only medical person available, then they'll be punished, but they can still hang around for medical reasons. Which has been used as a loophole before, certainly. And the referee will, I think this is a crucial, act on the advice of other match officials. So even when the assistant puts their flag up, that's advice, that is not a decision. So the referee has to still act on that advice, not the decision. There's a lot of stuff on this. Injuries. If a player's slightly injured, play continues. If a player's seriously injured, play stops. And injured players are not supposed to be treated on the field of play, basically, unless it's quicker for them to be so. And the exceptions are if a goalkeeper's injured. Oh no, sorry, this is leaving the field of play. So basically, if you're injured, you should be going off the field usually. And you have to re-enter from the touchline, but the exceptions are if it's a goalkeeper injured, clearly they don't have to go off to get treatment and leave the goal empty. If a goalkeeper collides with an outfield player, then both can get attention on the pitch for the obvious reason that it would be unfair for one of them to have to go off. If two players from the same team have collided with each other, they can be treated together, so a team doesn't have to go down to 9 while they're being treated. If it's a severe injury, it obviously gets done on the pitch. And if the opposing team have had a player booked or sent off, then the argument is, well, that was actually, the team who've committed that offence shouldn't benefit by having the other team down to 10 men temporarily. So they let them have it. And if there's been a penalty awarded, then the player who's going to take the penalty is the one who's down injured. There was a game with Kelly and Rangers quite a while ago where, amazingly enough, I think Kelly got 2 penalties against Rangers at Rugby Park in this game. We're talking 20 years ago. And I think Stephen Naismith was down injured and he would have been the penalty taker for Kelly. Had to go off for treatment. Potentially it was like more serious and he actually had to go off. And Peter Leven, I think, took the penalty and missed it. But in theory, he could have, I think that treatment could have been prolonged nowadays to allow him to stay on and take the penalty. A player bleeding will leave the field of play to make sure that blood's not. I think probably again for health and safety reasons. And players should only re-enter once the referee has signalled that they are satisfied the bleeding is stopped and there's no blood on their shirts. They're meant to change their shirts if they've got blood on it. Again, lower league football, that player will have to wait until the game stops, at which point someone can check them. Elite football with a fourth official, the fourth official can check them and wave them on. If the stretcher comes on the park, then the player has to go off the park, even if they don't need the stretcher. And they'll get booked if they don't. And if a player has to get a card before they go off the pitch, then the card has to be shown to them before they leave the pitch. That Old Firm game, wasn't there, where a Celtic player was sent off on a stretcher? Is that true?
Yeah, Lambert.
90s.
No, he wasn't. That was the thing. He should have been.
Yeah.
He should have been. He got his.
He gave away a penalty
and got booked. But it should have been. Or no, I think he'd already been booked, and he should have been a second yellow. But he just got given a penalty, and it was Lambert before the Euro 2000 playoff with England, so he missed that. So I mean, it was good in one sense because George Albert smashed Paul Lambert's face and won a penalty, which he scores right afterwards for me. But bad in that Lambert then missed that playoff.
And if the game stopped for an injury, then it's a drop ball. If it's not been because of an offence. Outside interference, the ref stops the game for basically any type of outside interference. For example, floodlight failure, objects being thrown onto the pitch that hits someone and causes an injury, a spectator blowing a whistle, or an extra ball coming on the park. Oh, sorry, right, we'll stick with it. And then if an extra ball comes on the park, the referee or an object or animal enters the field of play. And we've seen plenty of clips from like juniors and stuff, or West of Scotland League from dogs being on the pitch. Glenn Afton, I think, was the one that was on there. If the dog or the ball or whatever it is interferes with play, it should be removed at the earliest possible opportunity, but the play should continue. If the ball or the dog or whatever it is interferes with the game in some way, then the game should be stopped, unless the ball was already going in the net and the interference didn't prevent the goal from happening, which we spoke about a little bit last in one of the previous laws. So there's a lot of weird stuff around the ball hitting it, but the beach ball incident, I think we spoke about as well as being one of those that probably nowadays would be stopped because the goalkeeper would have saved that had it not hit a beach ball and deflected in. And they shouldn't have let anyone unauthorised enter the field of play. Dick Campbell at Somerset Park, for example, when he was like halfway on the pitch to protest a penalty decision. Right, so continuing with the referee's duties, VAR. VAR is only permitted when it suits all the kind of qualifications that are required for it to be up to scratch. And VAR should only intervene in a clear and obvious error, which is when there's a goal or no goal decision, a penalty or a no penalty, a straight red card, or a mistaken identity decision. That's when they should intervene. And VAR should use replays to decide on that, and the ref will make the final decision either based on the information from VAR or the referee watching the footage. But the referee is the one who makes the decision, and that was crucial in that Liverpool one we spoke about. Technically, what happened is the referee made the decision to give the free kick to Tottenham for an indirect free for offside, and that was based on the information he got from the VAR. Even though that information was wrong, that was his decision, and that is the final decision. But the referee must always make a decision on the pitch, and VAR should only they decide. Like, there has to be an on-field decision. You can't just go, I don't know, I'm not giving anything.
However,
and then
that
it should only overturn if it's a clue. Yes, no. This is the official situation, and it's how it should be, but it's probably not how it always is. Now, there's a whole section on VAR at the end of this, which we'll obviously come on to in one of the later episodes, but that's the basics of VAR. And if play has stopped and restarted, coming back to this Liverpool game again, the referee can only undertake a review for either mistaken identity. So say, and I think this happened in a Hearts game earlier this season, where a referee gave someone a yellow card and then was told a few minutes later that they'd actually booked the wrong player, and then they were able to transfer that over even though play had restarted. Or if there's a potential serious red card offence for violent conduct or offensive language or actions, that can be reviewed even after play's restarted, so that the player is still sent off. Right, and we're getting on to the other stuff around this. Referees' equipment, they have to have a whistle and a watch, and they have to have red and yellow cards and a notebook or some way of keeping note of the match. And they can also use equipment for communicating with match officials. So, for example, buzzers and beep flags. So, the top referees would have these. So the flag has a button on it, and you press it, and that kind of gives the ref a wee buzz. So when you were given an offside, you gave them a buzz. And they're allowed headsets and stuff, which you obviously see at the top level. And the referees can also wear this fitness monitoring stuff, which they do at the elite level to check how much running they do. But they also can't wear the same jewellery that players can't wear. And they can't wear cameras, although that will probably be changing at grassroots level, because I think there's been a bit of chat about body cams for safety. There's some stuff about referee signals. So we can see these. For those of you who've got the visual content, we can see this. This is probably not very podcast friendly, but they're meant to point to the spot for a penalty, hold their arms out for advantage, either one or two arms. Arm in the air is an indirect free kick. A point for a direct free kick. Point to the corner for a corner. Point to the goal kick place for a goal kick. Hold up a card. Put your hand to your ear for VAR. And obviously make the box for a TV signal. And then we've got liability of match officials. They are not responsible for any injuries suffered by players. This is almost like I suspect this would be into your If someone tried to sue a referee for a decision they made or for an injury that happened, this is basically trying to say you agreed to play under the laws of the game and the referee is not held liable for this. Obviously, as you will know from a legal perspective, there are probably limits to this. But, for example, if the referee actually caused the injury deliberately, I suspect that would. I'm not liable for punching you in the face. But any kind of injury suffered by anyone, any damage to property. So if you're refereeing a game and someone puts a ball into a car park and smashes someone's car's window, not the ref's fault, or any other loss caused by any decision taken under the laws of the game. Thinking of FAI and Thierry Henry handball decision here, where they tried to sue UEFA and they did actually money. Just get a token hush money. Yeah,
I can see that. I think VAR will change that, and I suspect there will be legal challenges that may be successful. For decisions that are it would obviously have to be a decision that was blatantly wrong. But it wouldn't surprise me if that doesn't hold in the future, which would open a can of worms, which would be quite unpleasant. Yeah,
a massive one. So these decisions could involve anything to do with the field of play. So if the referee says this park's safe to play on and then someone gets hurt on it, for example, to abandon a match, the referee makes a decision about how safe the ball or the goals are and they fall over or something. Whether to stop a game, whether to allow someone to get treatment. So obviously that Michael Mellon one with Dundee, where he got a bad injury and the ref probably didn't notice it. David Munro it was, didn't notice it and didn't get treatment straight away. The argument there would be that that's not the referee's liability. I think you're getting into dangerous territory there because you have a bit of a duty of care.
You can obviously you can write what you like in the laws of the game. That doesn't mean that yes.
If someone dies, yes,
it
because
doesn't
of
necessarily
you,
hold in the laws of the country. So yeah, it's there is. I mean, there have been. I'm not aware of any referee decisions, but I mean, there have been. There have been cases like it was Dean Saunders back in the early 90s. He gets sued for a bad tackle. So there's. I think it was Paul Elliott. I think Celtic. Yeah, it was the.
Yeah, there's been precedent a few times with players getting payouts for injuries that they suffered at various levels. But not from the referees, but still that's in amongst there. It's also the referee's decision as to whether to allow people, team officials, security officers, photographers to be present in the vicinity of the field of play, which I think Duncan Mackay of the Terrace podcast fell foul of once, which was that they wanted to have him do something for an episode of A View from the Terrace, and the referee said sorry, no. So the producers of A View from the Terrace could not sue that matchday referee. So that brings us to the end of the law, but I'll give you some of these questions. I think there's loads of them based on my scroll, so I'll just pick a few. A player has committed a yellow card or red card offence when the ball's in play. The assistant referee communicates the offence, but the ref doesn't see or hear the communication. Can the referee still show the card? Yes, that's correct, because the referee, it was spotted at the time, and it wasn't that the referee just didn't give it. It was that he didn't know about it and was only subsequently told. The referee has noticed that a player has committed a yellow card offence on the field of play during the warm-up. What's the correct procedure?
Yellow card. There and then.
Yep. Well, no, they can't be cautioned because the referee wasn't on the field of play. But it can be reported. If the referee was on the field of play to do it, I think that when to start the game, then it could happen. But because it's in the warm-up, they can't. Ooh. Sorry. That caught me out as well there, sorry. Because it's in the warm-up, it can be reported as a yellow card offence and would probably count towards totting up and stuff, but that player could get still booked during the game, I suppose. A player spits at the opponent in a pre-match warm-up. What is the correct procedure? They can't be named. The red card's not shown because cards can't be shown, but they are basic. It's basically a red card without a red card. They can't play in the game. The team can still play with 11 players because it's not the game hasn't started yet, but that player will be banished. I said more, I guess an extension. A defending player strikes an attacking player inside the penalty area while the ball is in play. The assistant referee indicates the offence, but the referee doesn't see the indication. Play continues and the ball leaves the field. What can the referee do if play has already then restarted again? So
they can't go
back, but what can they do?
The yellow card?
Yeah, or red card if it's violent conduct. But yeah, so they can't give the penalty, but they can still give the punishment. Okay, that's fine. We'll see anything else. Interesting. These are all things that we kind of specifically talked about. I think there's questions in here that aren't answered by things that we've covered yet, I would say. So the referee's awarded a penalty kick. However, the VAR recommends a review because the foul was committed outside the area. What's the appropriate procedure?
Well, they would get reviewed on the field. And then the decision would be reversed,
yes.
I presume.
They
they'd
usually just be told. They wouldn't have to go and watch it. Yeah. A player was injured after a foul and then assessed by the doctor on the field of play. They're able to continue playing. Can this player take a free kick? Only if it's kind of vague. Only if the player was booked for the foul. Otherwise, they're supposed to leave the field of play because they had the treatment. So it's kind of yes and no, depending on the situation. I think that will do us for some questions because the rest of these are all quite generic. So we'll go with that. So thank you everyone for joining us for Law 5. We'll be back again next time for Law 6.